And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 148th episode, recorded on Sunday, February the 2nd, 2025, Groundhog Day. And I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined today by my co-host, Kathy Amos, and we'll be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers' big win over Nebraska, 76-60, and that brings the record to 14-7 overall, 6-4 in the Big Ten. But as we always do, we'll start this episode with our banner moment. And our banner moment today is going to go back at the end of the first half. The three-pointer that Yarden Garzone made at the end of the first half moved her into fourth place for all-time made threes. And then she tied it for fourth place, and she moved into fourth place into the second half all by herself. So our banner moment goes out to Yarden Garzone with the three that moved her into fourth place today at the end of the first half. And our banner moment is brought to you by homefieldapparel.com. It's Homefield Apparel. It's presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Homefield is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Good stuff at Homefield Apparel. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And in brief news, we do want to remind all of our listeners that if you are interested, the Assembly Call Back Home Network meetup is in Bloomington on Saturday, February the 8th. That'll be this coming Saturday. Galen will be at Upstairs Pub before and during the game. They'll be doing a halftime show during the game, and then they also will have a full meetup after the game for the post-game show. And so that will be on Saturday, February the 8th, and that will be at the Upstairs Pub in Bloomington. But I'm going to throw it over to Kathy for the Amos, I cannot talk today. The Amos angle today.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah, great game all around here. We'll get into the details, obviously, but I thought it was just a really fantastic win after having lost a few at home, having won more Big Ten games on the road than at home, and this was a really important game in terms of standings where we're at and in the Big Ten. But not just that, but we're kind of on the bubble watch for NCAA's as well. Right now, we're one of the last teams in, according to Charlie Cream from ESPN. And Nebraska is also kind of right there in the bubble. So these two teams had a lot to really fight for today. And I thought Indiana came out and was, for the most part, the tougher team today. They showed more hustle, in my opinion, I thought, and they just showed a little bit more aggressiveness. And we'll get into it when we get into the numbers and more of the plays. But overall, just from tip until buzzer, for the most part, this was a nice, complete game from most of the team. So really excited to see this from the ladies. A great way to end the weekend for us here.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And especially, I thought they played with really good energy. In fact, let's throw it over to Kathy and let her kind of start us off with pivotal plays or pivotal moments if we want to, especially here in the first half.
Yeah. So concentrating kind of on the first half, one of the things we've really been watching is kind of turnovers. And I was a little concerned when we first started. Within the first 2 minutes, we weren't passing real crisp again. We had one that led to a turnover, I believe, on our first or maybe second possession, and really close to having two other passes stolen by Nebraska, all within 2 minutes. But after that, I thought we started really seeing some better ball movement. It led to back-to-back Sydney three-pointers for us to take the lead at 10-8. And then we went on an 8-0 run over about 3 minutes to put it up to 15-8 to finish that off. So overall, that first quarter, I thought we came out a little bit. I was a little concerned, but after that, I thought we had great pace, and our defense was really on point as well, holding Nebraska to only 14 points total. And in fact, it was only 8 for most of that quarter until they went on a little bit of a run at the end. So overall, I thought that was a nice quarter for us to start off the game.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And I really liked the way they kind of started, like you said, a little slow, but I loved the energy they were playing with, loved the pace. And I thought they did a nice job of really going on a run there toward the rest of the quarter and finish off with a 19-14 lead. Again, I don't get too specific with the plays. I just like,
Yep.
I like overall feel. And I thought that first quarter really set the tone. And it was more, and to a certain degree, it was Sid who kind of got us going early in the first quarter, or at least when we started the early part of that run. But yet, you look overall, she struggled shooting the ball a little bit. But early, she hit a couple of threes early, and that was really kind of what really propelled that big first quarter there to go out to a 19-14 lead. So, Kathy, I'll throw it back to you. Anything about the second quarter you want to add in?
Yeah. Talking about the second quarter. Although before we leave the first, I think we do have to have a nice shout out to Henna for that three. As you know, Chloe kind of brought that ball down with 10 seconds to go and found her to put it up that 19-14 at the end of the first. That was fun to see for Henna. But yeah, we came out in that second quarter, and I think the overall feel of the second quarter was a quarter of runs. It was like a 2 quarters or 2 halves within a quarter. We came out 8-0 to run, actually 11-0 run when Henna hit another three. Or hit 11-0 back to Henna's three and forced a Nebraska timeout. The Nebraska didn't score at all until just about 5 minutes to go in that quarter. And it was really kind of a circus shot that got them finally going in there. And then they went on to go on a 9-0 run. And so it was just kind of this tale of 2 halves within the quarter for me. I thought, we came out just with great intensity, and then we just kind of our offense rather dried up towards the end of that second quarter. We did end up winning that second quarter 17-10, but there were some really nice plays at the beginning, and then we just kind of drifted off a little bit offensively. But what were your thoughts, Jeff, in that second quarter?
Go back. I thought they were playing well through for the first part of the quarter, but then Sid gets a silly foul. I really, and I love the way Sid plays. She is one of my favorites, if not my favorite on this team, but she has to be a little smarter there. It was a situation where Nebraska got the rebound, and she kind of trying to go from behind and get a steal and get the foul, 75 feet away from the basket, being her second foul. She stayed in for maybe another minute with 2 fouls. And I think they thought better about it because they had such a big lead. But I felt like they lost their mojo when Sid went to the bench because she had been playing so well. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, the second part of that quarter, actually the last 6 minutes, if Yarden doesn't hit the three at the end of the first half, they're going to go 6+ minutes without a bucket. The only points they would have had in that stretch would have been, they would have had one free throw. They'd had one free throw basically in the last 6 minutes until Yarden hit the three at the end. So, and that's kind of what we've seen. And I think we all were, at least those of us in the text, so a lot of our fan base was like, here we go. We get a double-digit lead, and then for some reason we're going to, let it dribble away here and down into single digits, and the momentum's going. But the three by Yarden was huge because it jumped it back to a double-digit lead. And you felt like at least you hadn't lost a whole lot. Instead, that difference between 12 and 9 is huge in a sense of momentum and psychology. But that was a rough end of the first half, and I had no explanation other than they lost rhythm, and because Sid was providing so much of it. She wasn't hitting a lot of shots by that point, but she just was playing with so much energy that it was rubbing off on everybody else. And I will say at this point, Chloe was able to do some nice things in the first half. They just didn't show up in the scoring column in the last part of the second quarter. So throw it over to you, Kathy. Let's talk about the third quarter a little bit.
Yeah. So I think the theme of that first half in particular was our defense really helped us, especially 3-point defense. And it kind of followed us into the second half as well. Nebraska actually came in second in the Big Ten in terms of 3-pointers made, and they didn't hit a single one in that first half at all. And we hit 8, and that was really the big difference for me. And I think that continued on. But yes, the third quarter, again, we kind of, came out again. I thought all year a lot, but this game in particular, it seemed we were missing Stripling down low quite a bit. We did get her the ball, I thought, at points, but there were a lot of times we just seemed to be a bit, late getting the ball down to her. But the big theme was the first 3 minutes. We got 4 fouls in that first 3 minutes of that third quarter. And again, Sydney, as you mentioned, she got her third foul with 4:43 to go. And it was just kind of a theme again for Sydney. I think she held on and only had 4 fouls for the whole game, but she got that last foul, or fourth foul with 5:18, and again had to go to the bench. And I think you're right. I think she brought a lot of energy today, and it really seemed to drop off when she went out. So overall, though, I thought we had a nice end to that third quarter. So started out again with the fouling in the beginning of the third quarter, and then I had a nice end to get that lead up to 57-41 to end that quarter. So, and again, IU won that quarter, outscoring Nebraska 21-17. So, those first 3 quarters, we just, kept chipping away at Nebraska's will, if you will. And I thought the third quarter was a continuation of that.
Yeah, I agree. The winning the quarter, they still won the quarter, even though there were some segments in that third quarter that weren't as good. The thing I liked in the third quarter was you started to get more contributions from other people. Yarden hit some more shots. Chloe was a little more aggressive and more looking to score. I thought in the third quarter, in the second half overall. And I'm going to talk about Chloe a little bit more as we get later in the podcast. But I thought it was another one though where I was getting worried because Shea was not doing a whole lot. If you had one person that you were going to gripe about a little bit today, it was going to be Shea, because I thought everybody else, we talked about the bench in the last couple episodes, and the bench got some minutes today. And I thought Lily played well off the bench. I really did. She did a nice job of defensively. She did a nice job of rim running. But I really felt like Shea was struggling through that first 3 quarters. And then she found a little bit more in the fourth quarter and made it look a little more respectable in terms of her scoring and such. But I felt like third quarter. I thought the big part of the third quarter was they got off to a good start. For the most part, outside of the fouling, offensively they got off to a decent start and didn't allow Nebraska to kind of make a run to get it down to 4 or 5. And with that, so anything in the fourth quarter you want to talk about, Kathy?
Again, just kind of we withstood some of these runs from Nebraska. Nebraska had another, we forced a lot of turnovers to start that fourth quarter, but then Nebraska went on a 7-0 run in about 2 minutes. And that one was ended by Shea Chusky. She hit a 3 to put us up 60-48. But overall, yes, I agree with you. I think Chusky, again, didn't have the offensive game we were hoping to see from her on a consistent basis this year. That 3 was the first one she hit, and I'm not even sure how long. It's been multiple games, I think, since she made a 3-pointer for us. But and at the end of the day, this ended up being our highest scoring game in 2025, not the whole year, but in terms of like conference play and the calendar year, this ended up being our highest scoring game. And so it was really nice to see that offensive and a burst from us. But yes, we had 4 players to that point in double digits, and we'll get into it with the numbers here more. But I agree with you, Jeff. I don't think Shea again brought a whole lot for us. She had some pretty wide misses. There's just something I think probably going on with her now at this point mentally with her 3-point shot that it's just not there for her. She was 1 of 4 today, and 2 of those misses were complete air balls from her as well. So, but other than that, I thought all of the starters played really, really well. But yeah, we'll talk more about it when probably we get into the numbers, but nothing else. I think we just, we ended up tying Nebraska in that game and holding on, and in that quarter, 19-19. But overall, I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about in the fourth quarter. It was just overall, for the most part, I think a really complete game from our women today.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. What I was going to say is I really felt like it was our most complete game in a long time. As far as from start to finish, did we have some moments where we didn't play as well? Yes, but as far as offensively, defensively, playing with energy, we basically tied Nebraska on the glass. We were doing all the things that we think of with this Indiana program. And I think that's been part of what some of the frustration with the fan base. And I say that I don't want to go too far with it because it's like, they're still winning games. Like we said, they're 14-7. It's not like they've fallen off the face of the earth here. It's just not the same team. And there are going to be nights like this, especially when they're hitting threes early. You're talking about, trying to get too deep in the numbers here, but they were 8 for 15 in the first half from beyond the arc. We've talked about in games here where in the last couple of weeks where they've struggled beyond the arc. A certain player may have shot well from beyond the arc, but as a team, they hadn't shot really high, high volume, high percentage, whereas today they were hitting threes. And I think that's really what this team's identity to a certain degree is that as they hit threes, that's really going to be carries their mojo, carries their energy. But I thought they did a good job today of not just settling. I thought they were doing a good job of getting good shots and getting shots out of rhythm of the offense, whether they were twos or threes. So I totally echo that about the most complete game of the year, or not of the year, but at least in the last 2-3 weeks or so. That I can't think. I'm trying to think of a specific game, especially in a win where I felt like maybe Iowa, where we played as complete a game as we did in this. So I guess I'd have to go back to at least the Iowa game for that. Kathy, I'll throw it over to you unless you got anything else about the plays. Let's jump into the numbers.
Yeah, let's do it. Jeff, we tend to start with offensive numbers. I'm going to start on the defensive side. So we held Nebraska, as I already mentioned, to no 3-pointers in the first half, 3 overall in the entire game. Nebraska only went 3 for 11. Again, just to repeat, Nebraska was the second leading team in terms of 3-pointers made in the Big Ten. So that was a huge accomplishment. They were scoring an average of 76 points per game. We held them to 60. Their 2 best players were Prince and Markowski. Prince was averaging 13.3 points per game. We held her to only 11. Markowski was averaging 14 points per game. We held her to 8. And not only that, we forced 17 Nebraska turnovers, leading into 15 extra points for us. So to me, I think what really helped, in addition to the threes like we've been talking about on the made side, was the defensive end that we had. I thought our defense today was really spot on and a really great team effort in addition to that. So to me, IU's defense on Nebraska was one of the highest contributing factors to this win. And it was really nice to see, especially 17 turnovers for Nebraska.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right off that. I'm going to go to 17 Nebraska turnovers led to 15 IU points. We won the battle on the points off turnovers 15-7. So we got almost a point per turnover. And that and I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. That's because of 10 steals. There were at least 10 live ball turnovers compared to Indiana or Nebraska, who only had 4 steals. So piggyback off that, defense generating offense here going into 17 points off turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think we always like to watch is rebounding. So again, Nebraska out-rebounded us today, but only by 4. So we were fairly even there, 27-23. So I have no qualms with that there. I think this might be a good place if you want to, Jeff. Let's talk about the bench a little bit. So Nebraska's bench did outscore us 28-11. I'm not totally surprised at that in terms of, the disparity there. Nebraska does go a little bit deeper for longer minutes on their bench than we do, as we mentioned in our preview of this game. They've started 11 different players. So we know that they tend to play more rotation. But it was Bozen and Hargrove who really came off the bench and combined for 23 points of those 28 versus our 11. So, we did get, double-digit minutes from Bargesser and Meister, but again, Jules with 4 and Henna Sandvik only with 6. So basically a 7-person rotation for us on our bench. So, just a common theme. And I don't think that's going to change anymore at this point in the year. We are sitting here on February 2nd, like you mentioned, Groundhog Day. It's kind of what it felt like. Groundhog Day, we're only playing about 7 deep at this point, and probably not going to change.
No. I will go here, 25 assists on 29 made baskets. Again, the ball was moving, the ball was popping. Not only was the ball moving, players were moving, and then they finished. Because again, we've talked about this before. You can move the ball, you can make some really nice passes, but if the player doesn't finish by making the shot, the assist goes out the window. And today they were making shots, but the passing was crisp, except for maybe at the beginning, as you noted. But I thought the passing was really pretty good. I thought the ball was popping; it wasn't sticking in any one place too long. And so the assist number is outstanding at 25 assists on 29 made baskets.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to love to see that, almost 1-to-1. So those were a lot of the big numbers, Jeff, that really stuck out to me. Field goal percentage there again, we're at 46%, and the 3-point 43% to 27, which we've already touched on. So I don't really have a whole lot else left in team numbers, but what about you? I'm
going to go to turnovers. We only had 8 for the game, which is really, really good for this group. And I think only 2 in the second half. I think it was 6 turnovers in the first half. That's and right. Only 2 in the second half. So maybe only 1. I thought it was 6 in the first half. Was there 6 or 7?
Yeah.
So 6 in the first half, 2 in the second half. So again, when this team is playing with pace, playing with energy, able to knock down shots and not turn it over, it's got the potential to be a pretty solid team. And that's what showed up today as well. So let's go ahead, Kathy, and let's move on to game ball.
Yeah, this one is interesting here. We've had a number of players get our game ball for the year. I was really struggling because we had 4 of our 5 starters, I thought, played really, really good games. You had 4 of them all in double digits. So Sydney getting there to join that double digit club at 11 later in the game. So I thought really the where I ended up landing for me was Chloe Moore McNeil, though. So she didn't lead the team per se in scoring. She was second at 15 behind Yarden Garzone, but she did it on 5 of 7 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3. She had 7 assists as well to go along with that, and only 2 turnovers. As you mentioned, we only had 8 as a team, so it wasn't really anything concerning today. But what really swung it for me was her defense on Britt Prinz. As I mentioned, she was 13 points per game and coming in. And I thought Chloe Moore McNeil in particular really shut her down. And a lot of her 11 points came kind of later in the game in that fourth quarter. So that's where I ended up landing for me was Chloe Moore McNeil. I think you can go a couple of different ways here as well. So it wouldn't be surprising at all if you had a different vote, Jeff, but that's where I landed with mine.
Well, I kind of was leaning toward the 2 you talked about, and then also you had to bring in Yarden because we did lead the team in scoring. Yep. But I'm with you, and by the way, I will say for those of you who are watching on the YouTube feed, you can see the scroll here. But currently, our game ball awards, Yarden Garzone leads with 5, and then Shay Chesky and Sydney Parrish have 4 each. Lily Meister has 3, Caroline Striplin and Chloe Moore McNeil 2 each coming into today. But I'm with Kathy. I was going to Chloe because 7 rebounds. She was second on the team in rebounding. She had 7 assists and 4 steals. So she led the team in assists. She was second in rebounds, and she had a team high, or tied for a team high, 4 steals. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go with you. I think that's the best one today is Chloe Moore McNeil, and that will give her 3rd game ball of the year. And then so let's throw it back to Kathy for the hardest worker award. Yeah, and see which way she's leaning.
Yeah. So this one too, I had to put quite a bit of thought in. Again, a good problem to have. And for me, I ended up landing on Caroline Striplin. I thought she made a lot of really good hustle plays. She also had the 13 points to contribute there, 5 rebounds as well. As you mentioned with Chloe Moore McNeil, she also had 4 steals to her name. Today. I thought Caroline did also a pretty good job when Markowski was in there on defense. So again, I've been really impressed with the defense today side of it. And I thought Caroline Striplin really did a nice job on Markowski, helping and contributing to that only 8 points for her. So for me, that all of that game for Caroline gives her my vote for Grace Berger, hardest worker.
Yeah, I was really leaning towards Sid here a little bit initially as I was kind of watching the game and looking at the numbers, because you talk about Sid had 11 points, that little layup there at the end got her into double figures. She just struggled to shoot it, and I meant that, but she led the team in rebounds with 8. She had 4 assists, but she also had 3 turnovers to go along with the steal. So I'm going to go with Caroline Striplin. That's where I was going. I thought Yarden had a good day, and I know some people will be like, well, how do you not give Yarden something today? But, Yarden only had 2 rebounds. Now, she did have 4 assists, but she didn't have any steals. So I just felt that Striplin really played well defensively, like you said, but I just feel like she gives us a little bit inside outside. She's able to step out to about 15 feet and reliably knock that shot down, as well as play down in the post and battle. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to agree here, Caroline Striplin. And by the way, for those of you who are watching on the YouTube feed, you can see the scroll here. Going into today, Chloe was leading the way with 5 Grace Berger hardest workers, and then Yarden Garzone had 4, Sydney Parrish with 3, Lily Meister and Caroline Striplin with 2, and then Shay Chesky, Jules Lamondola, Hannah Sandvik each had 1. And so now Caroline will move up to 3 and tie her with Sydney on the list for Grace Berger hardest worker. So today game ball goes out to Chloe Moore McNeil. The Grace Berger hardest worker goes to Caroline Striplin. Let's move on. Kathy's still going to update us on some numbers here, especially Yarden's 3-point field goal made career-wise.
Yep, we'll probably just concentrate on that because both our ladies were honored before the game, making that 1,000 point club. So official congratulations to both of them. And as we mentioned, Chloe is in fifth place with her assists and probably out of reach for fourth. However, Yarden keeps moving up the list here, as Jeff mentioned in his banner moment. She is now in fourth place in three-pointers made with 192 for her career. She only needs 8 more to get to 200. Obviously, with the math there, that would tie her for third, and she needs 14 to tie for first place. So if she continues her average, which is just around 2.9 three-pointers made per game, she would need about 5 more games here to tie for first this year. So in case anyone is kind of curious, I did look up, just in case you're wondering, so Amanda Cahill is third, Tyra Buss is second, and Chris McGrade set that record back in the early 90s for first place. So she is on pace right now to pass Amanda Cahill next, and then Tyra Buss, and then potentially even before the end of the year, and doing all of that as a junior. So just really impressive shooting and all around game from Yarden again.
So as we noted earlier, Indiana improved to 6-4 in the league. Right now, that still has them basically in a tie that puts them in the 10 seed, but there are some games going on today that will affect that. Minnesota plays a little bit later at UCLA. They're currently 6-4 in the league. And then also right now, Illinois and Maryland are playing right now. And last I saw, Maryland was up at the half, and now they're up 3 as they head toward the end of the third quarter. So if Illinois loses that game, that's going to drop them down to 5 losses. So there's some things that will shake out a little bit later after we get done with the podcast that may move Indiana up that rank a little bit towards 7th or 8th, depending upon how things shake out. But right now, they would, as I showed earlier if you didn't get a chance to watch the broadcast, they were being projected. They're showing some NCAA tournament projection as well. They would have been a 10 seed and would have been playing Florida State in that projection on the TV broadcast. So a lot of things still have to happen here. But the big thing for IU is the league's so good this year that for the most part, they're going to get a lot of, high quality. And I don't think the women call it quad one, but it's basically the same thing. They're quad one type wins and quad one games. So, that's the thing you're going to look at. So, but their next game is going to be on Thursday night, 6:00 Eastern start, 5 Central. That game will be on regular BTN. That's against Rutgers. Now, Rutgers has been struggling, but again, I don't think this is a team that really wants to try and overlook anybody. We saw kind of what happened early in the year, and we kind of thought maybe we could overlook some teams, and even in the Northwestern game back a couple of weeks ago. So, just take care of business here now on Thursday, and let's get ourselves to 7-4 in the league if at all possible. IU leads the series all time 8-6. They've won the last 5, including last year's matchup at Rutgers, 66-56. The Scarlet Knights are coached by Coquise Washington. She's in her 3rd year at Rutgers, 29-57 at Rutgers, a .337 winning percentage. They're only 8-39 in the league. That's a 170 winning percentage. And by the way, Rutgers and Penn State, I believe, are the only 2 teams in the league who weren't playing today.
That's right.
Because 16 teams were playing today. I know this is about next week. Next Sunday, there's like 7 games. So I kind of like that. I like the way the league's doing that to get a lot of games and basically all kind of playing at the same time. I really like that, and I hope they'll continue more of that as we go into the future. But she's in her 15th year as a head coach. She spent 12 seasons at Penn State, where they had a nice run in the early 2010s. They won 3 straight Big Ten titles, won or shared 3 straight Big Ten titles, and then it kind of went away on them. But she was overall in her 15th year, she's 238 and 226, which is a .512 winning percentage. And Kathy, why don't you talk about some of their key players?
Yeah. So when you start with Rutgers, you got to start with their all-star freshman, Kayomi McMiller. She is a 5'8" freshman guard. She is averaging 19 points per game to lead all freshmen in the Big Ten this year. She is also averaging 4.8 rebounds per game and is shooting at a 41% field goal percentage. Then you got to follow that up pretty closely with Destiny Adams. She is a 6'3" senior for them. She is averaging 17.5 points per game and 9.9 rebounds per game and a block per game. So got to keep an eye on her, averaging a double-double as well. So I think those are really the 2 that you really have to key on in particular. But you also got to keep an eye out, too, for JoJo Lacey. She's a 6'1" grad student. She is the only person for Rutgers to start all 22 of their games. But she is averaging right at 9 points per game and 5 rebounds per game.
and Rutgers will be coming in at 9 and I don't know if they play tomorrow, but as of right now, they're 9-13 overall, 1-10 in the league. They average 69 points a game offensively, which is 104th in the country, but it's 15th in the Big Ten. They give up 71 a game, which is 301st, and it's 16th in the Big Ten. 40.3% field goal percentage is 187th. That's dead last in the Big Ten. Their effective field goal rate is 44.5, which puts them at 219th in the country. 29.3% from beyond the arc, 241st overall. Again, dead last in the league. They average just right at 40 rebounds a game. They're a negative 0.7 rebound margin, but they do get more rebounds than Indiana does, which could be partly because they miss more shots too. And they they turn it over about 15. They turn it over 15 and a half times per game, which is they're a plus 0.4. So they turn it over about the same rate that they force turnovers. So not kind of a wash there. But Kathy, why don't you give us your thought about some of those numbers? Big thing jumps out to me is this is not a very good shooting team.
Yeah, it just in general, this is a game you have to go up there, even though I think this one is on the roads, right? You got to go and take care of business.
Rutgers at home.
Oh, is that home? Okay. Well, regardless, you still have to take care of business, especially at home. By the way, when I was listening to Austin, the pregame radio feed, he did say that they have quad wins, and today's win would have been a quad 2 win for Indiana. So I think they instituted that evidently, because I didn't think they had it either, or maybe Austin has his own quad system. But anyway, regardless, back to Rutgers. Yes, I think overall this is one of the teams in the bottom of the conference. They've only won that one game. You have to take care of business at home. Rutgers is not a good rebounding team as well. And so I would hope to see, that we are able to put up some good numbers again. Their defense is not all that stellar at 71 points per game allowed, and the rebounding margin, where Rutgers is actually at a rebounding deficit on average this year. So this would be a place where maybe we should be able to go in and hopefully get out to a big lead, and with, maybe 5 minutes or so to go, start seeing some of our bench players and start to see some of our starters get a rest. So those are what I'm kind of looking for. So I really would like to see us hit the boards here against a very poor rebounding team in Rutgers and just take care of business. So that's kind of my overall thought with this. This is just not a game you can't look past them, though, because we have seen with our team, if they lose focus, take, for example, that Northwestern game, even though we won, it was, a game that probably was a little closer than it should have been. I'm hoping we don't see the same from here, from them on this game Thursday. Yes. So those are my thought on the Rutgers game.
Yeah. And I think just don't give them hope. This is a team that's 1-10 right now in the league. Don't let them come out and hit shots early where they gain confidence, they hang around, and then you're in a dogfight to the end of the game. This is one of those games you really need a hot start, come out, see if you can put them away in the first half, build a big lead, and then maybe we get some people off the bench and run some people out there able to alleviate some of the minutes that we're playing with some of our stars. I will go back to stat here that I thought I didn't mention the notable numbers, but even the broadcast noted, Kathy, I don't know if you caught it, because we've mentioned on here a couple different times over the year that, Sydney's at one of the highest foul rates in the league. She's probably averaging about 4 fouls a game. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because you want Sid to be able to stay on the floor. You don't want to have to sit her because you have to. You want to set her because it's part of the rotation, not because, hey, you got 2 fouls or 3 fouls. So I thought that was an interesting stat that they mentioned on the broadcast as well. Looking ahead here around the Big Ten, this past Thursday, Nebraska had gone into West Lafayette and pulled off a 74-68 win. And then USC at home had defeated Minnesota 82-69. Right now, we've had some games going on today that Kathy and I are kind of tracking here. The one that's on TV right now on Fox, and I've been posting in the chat here a little bit. At one point, it was 23-4. Iowa was up on USC at the end of the first quarter. It's now 29-28 at the half. USC has grabbed the lead. Illinois and Maryland are tied at 50-50 in the fourth quarter. Michigan with a huge blowout win today against Oregon, 80-48 in Ann Arbor. And then a big game coming up for IU fans here because Minnesota's involved. Minnesota at UCLA at Pauley Pavilion. That game's a 3 Eastern time, 2 Central start. So that game should be getting ready to start here in the next half hour or so. But that game, again, if UCLA wins, that's going to drop Minnesota down to 5 losses in the Big Ten and will help Indiana climb the standings, at least for the now. So Kathy, just real quick, what do you think about, before we can talk about the standings, about some of the results around the league?
Yeah, there's some fun games going on right now. I'll be interested to flip on that USC Iowa game. So as you mentioned, so for people that maybe hadn't heard this, they did retire Caitlin Clark's jersey. I think they did it before the game started. I'm not 100% sure on that. I got some differing answers on that. But anyway, regardless, I think I would kind of use that to their advantage in terms of motivation, and came out and held USC to 4 points. But then USC, I guess, maybe got a little angry and had 25 points in that second quarter. So yeah, they're up by 1 at the half. Illinois just went up by 4, and Maryland early into the second half. And as you already mentioned, the blowout with Oregon. Oregon had been playing some really good ball game, or good ball, as we saw. They really I can't remember where I saw this. I think Ari had mentioned it in our chat at one point. They just really ugly up basketball games, and I guess their defense didn't quite travel with them in that game today. And then of course our rivals up the road there are actually playing Wisconsin. Not that that is anything big, but Purdue is up over Wisconsin right now. Purdue has yet to win a Big Ten game. So this would be big just for Purdue's standpoint, but nothing in terms of the standings. Yeah. Not a game I'll probably be turning on, but I would like to see that USC Iowa game. And yeah, Jeff, it's kind of interesting to me. I was talking to my husband before our game started, and I was looking at the slate of games coming up, and I said, well, I know UCLA is number 1, and typically I root for the underdog, but in terms of standings, I think it would be better for us for UCLA to beat Minnesota. It would move us, kind of ahead, I think, of Minnesota in the standings. And so normally I would cheer for the underdog in UCLA to get beat. But I think in this case, I think it does better for us as a program, and in terms of Big Ten standings, for Minnesota to get beat in that game. So kind of an interesting dichotomy in my own head that I have.
Yeah. And I'm real quick. I just thought I'd jump ahead here and kind of look and see some games. And I'm going to update real quick because well, I'm doing it here, so I'm trying not to. But then Wednesday, or later today, Washington travels to Columbus to play OSU. I think OSU wins that game, but Washington has been competitive in some games. So that will be a game to kind of keep an eye on. And then the other game here is, want to make sure where this is being played at, because I just started thinking I didn't look when we made the run sheet. And then Thursday, along with IU's game, but probably the big game in the league on Thursday is Maryland's going to travel out to Eugene to play Oregon. And right now, Maryland's in a dogfight. As you mentioned, they're down in the fourth quarter to Illinois. So Maryland again, injuries are playing a role here for Maryland. I get that. But all of a sudden, Maryland's kind of tumbling down the standings, and that could be beneficial to IU because we still get to play Maryland as well. So, with that. So right now, currently in the Big Ten standings, USC's 9-0, UCLA's 8-0. So essentially tied, still undefeated. OSU is in third at 8-1. And then you had that log jam kind of here at third place. But we need to update this a little bit because Oregon's no longer in that spot. Right. Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska. Well, actually, Nebraska's not in that spot anymore either. Maryland and Michigan State are both at 7-3. And then you'll have Nebraska and
Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah, Nebraska and Oregon are 7-4. Yeah,
7-4, yep. And then Minnesota and Illinois are currently 6-4, and IU jumps up to 6-4 as well. So IU's in that mix right there at 6-4, waiting to see what Illinois and Minnesota do. So with that, so just Kathy, kind of again, we got a long way to go. I mean, we still got a month in the season, but just kind of what you think about the standings so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly how we've been expecting and projecting all year. We just have this, top tier with USC, UCLA, followed closely by Ohio State. Maryland is right up there. Surprise for me is Michigan State. I did not expect them to be in the top 5 in the conference this year. So interesting with the Spartans. And then you just have this log jam of a bunch of 7-4, 6-4, 6-5 teams that are kind of just beating up on each other. So February is going to show a lot and shake a lot out. And so, Indiana, again, like we mentioned, they just have to continue to take care of business. Hopefully they don't have any stub their toe moments here along the way. So one game at a time, but February is going to be so pivotal, I think, for the conference. And yeah, I agree. The conference is just going to probably get quite a few teams. What did they last projected? We saw anywhere from 10 to 12, depending on who you look at for bracketology. So got to keep in that top half of the Big Ten, not just only for Big Ten standings and hopefully getting a first game bye in the Big Ten tournament, but also for NCAA and seeding. So being able to get in and not be a bubble team and sweating it out on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my final thoughts are going to go. I thought that this would piggyback off of my final thoughts from the Washington game, that I felt like that game was huge because it kept us on the plus side. Now this game against a quality opponent gets you to 6-4. Knock on wood, but if you take care of business on Thursday, gets you to 7-4 before you go up to Minnesota next Sunday to play the Golden Gophers, who have been a little bit of a surprise in the league, especially since what we thought was their best player, Mara Brown, was out for the year. So it's an interesting team that you got going through here. But now you got this game today, get the game on Thursday. You're 7-4, gives you a little bit of buffer. Because I agree with you, Kathy. The more you stay to the plus side of 500 here, the better seed. Obviously, Mr. Obvious here, but you're going to avoid that first day of the Big Ten tournament, and you maybe want to avoid those top 2 or 3 teams if you can. If you can get up to get to that maybe. I'm assuming the 4. I haven't really looked at the bracket since they've done it this year. I need to take a better look at it. But you want to try and avoid those top 3 teams if you can on that second day, and so get yourself in a seating position that allows you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. My kind of final thoughts here too to wrap everything up is. Good game today. Like we said, I do absolutely think this is one of the better complete games. Like you mentioned, I think you're right, Jeff. I think since the Iowa game that we went out and won on the road, then we came back, we kind of stubbed our toes against Illinois, I think almost immediately after that game. We lost that game at Oregon, kind of squeaked by Washington, where we had like bad quarter, good quarter, bad quarter, and kind of went back and forth. And then here today, I just think we came home, we took care of business. Defense in particular just really stepped up, as well as a lot of good 3-point shooting from our team. And so overall, just a really fantastic win. Excited to continue watching how things progress and play out here the rest of February for both our team and around the league. So it's just it's an exciting Big Ten season, I think, this year for sure.
Yeah, and with that, so well, Kathy, if you don't have anything else, let's wrap it up here today.
All right, sounds good.
And we will be back next time, as we said, on Tuesday, February the 11th. That'll be after both the Rutgers and the Minnesota games have been played. We both have some conflicts in our schedules to be able to be live after either one of those games, but we'll be back to recap both those games on Tuesday, February the 11th at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. That's the @ symbol, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you've heard throughout the broadcast. I also want to thank Kathy for being my co-host again today. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back to talk with IU Hoops again with you soon. Until then, keep your elbow in and your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
So I guess one thing we did miss in the news is you put it in the chat, but we didn't mention it on the podcast. So for those still listening, we did land a new recruit. We have an Australian player coming to us. I believe she is a 2026 recruit. So another freshman coming in. She was also recruited by Miami and Marquette, if I am serving my memory correctly. So an interesting get from the little bit we looked, and of course we'll do more in-depth preview of our incoming players in the summer, but She, sorry, although I guess she won't be a freshman next year. She's 2026. But anyway, she is a tall player that can play center, but can also shoot the 3 ball. So I'll be interested to see if we can find any video on her and if we can break her down at all. But an interesting recruit, I thought, for Terry Moore and the coaching staff. So just one thing we forgot in that news segment.
Yeah, and then Ashlyn James also had committed earlier this week or at the end of last week too, that we didn't mention as well.
That's right.
Currently, right now, Maryland up by 3 with just under 3 minutes to go. So that game's going to be tight down to the wire there. So then, like I said, halftime in Iowa City. So, yeah, but a fun episode today. We were able to have a good win and have a lot of positive things to talk about. So
yes, absolutely. So also in one last plug, if anyone's in the Bloomington area this coming Saturday, I will be at Uptown. I'd love to meet any of you. Or Uptown, I don't know what that is, Upstairs Pub for the meetup with the rest of the Back Home Network guys and that are able to make it. So Jeff is unfortunately not going to be there, so I will be the sole representative for the Doing the Work podcast. But if you are around, would love to have you guys come up to Upstairs and shake your hand and thank you for listening. So that's my real final word, I guess.
Hey, we're going to get out of here and let you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yep. Happy Sunday, everyone. Good night.
See ya.